Aston Martin just dropped a bomb. And no, this isn't a small PR tweak. The car maker has agreed to sell a minority stake in its Formula One team, and the numbers are the kind of headline F1 and business outlets can't ignore. The deal being discussed values the team at roughly $3.2 billion, with Aston Martin Lagonda selling around a 4.6% stake for roughly $146 million, and the company has confirmed a binding letter of intent has been signed with a buyer who hasn't been named publicly yet. That means, for the immediate future, the team's market value is being written up sharply while the car maker itself takes a cash injection to help shore up its wider business. So what does sold a minority stake actually mean in plain English? It means the listed car company that carries the Aston Martin name, the part that makes your road cars and answers to public investors, is trimming back its ownership in the F1 outfit. This wasn't the team being auctioned off or Lawrence Stroll walking away. It's a targeted financial move to raise liquidity from an asset that has ballooned in value over the last few years. Remember, the racing side has been one of the most valuable pieces of the Aston Martin story recently, so converting a sliver of that growing value into cash is a way to help the struggling road car business without abandoning the racing project. The immediate headlines you want are simple. The team now carries a multi-billion-dollar valuation on paper. Aston Martin, the car maker, just raised a mid-three-figure million amount, and the buyer is currently unnamed while the sale moves through the formal process. That combination, huge valuation plus small stake sale plus undisclosed buyer plus binding letter of intent, is exactly why the story is trending. It's the kind of strategic financial engineering that turns heads in both motorsport and business circles, because it signals that investors view F1 teams as premium, rapidly, appreciating assets even if the car maker itself is under commercial pressure. Quick check with you. Did that surprise you? Vote in the poll on screen, shocked or not shocked, and drop a one-word reaction in the comments, shock or me. If you're into fast, no-fluff F1 news like this, hit subscribe and ring the bell. We're building towards 1,000 subscribers, and every click helps us get there. Also, smash that like button if you want chapter-by-chapter breakdowns. It tells us you want more detail, and we'll keep digging. Now that we've covered what was sold and how big the valuation is, let's step back and talk about why Aston Martin had to make this move in the first place. Because on the surface, selling part of an F1 team that's been climbing in value looks counterintuitive. But when you dig into the financial picture of the road car company, the logic becomes a lot clearer, and in some ways, unavoidable. Aston Martin Lagonda, the car maker, has been facing serious challenges in the global luxury auto market. Its stock performance has been rough, with nearly half its market value evaporating over the past year. On top of that, the company has seen big quarterly drops in revenue, with demand for ultra-expensive cars softening in several key regions. And even when you do sell cars, exporting into the United States comes with its own added hit. Tariffs that look small on paper but quickly pile up when margins are already razor-thin. Think of it like this. If you're running a brand that prides itself on exclusivity and handcrafted detail, you don't get to play the mass market numbers game that brands like Mercedes or BMW can. Your volumes are lower, your costs are higher, and if demand dips by even a fraction, the impact on your books feels 10 times worse. Aston Martin has been living that reality, and it's left management scrambling for ways to raise cash, stabilize operations, and reassure shareholders that the ship is still under control. That's where the F1 team comes in. Over the past few years, the value of Formula One outfits has skyrocketed. From team valuations under $1 billion not too long ago, we're now seeing figures in the multiple billions, all thanks to the growth of the sport, booming global TV audiences, and the cost cap making the economics of running a team more predictable. So while the road car division has been bleeding value, the racing side has been exploding upwards. And if you're in charge of the finances, It makes sense to cash in on that momentum without losing control of the entire project. By selling just 4.6% of their stake, Aston Martin raised a meaningful $146 million, while keeping the F1 program largely intact under the same branding. In other words, they're not cashing out of the sport, they're using it like a safety valve. It's the corporate equivalent of selling a prized collectible to pay the mortgage. Painful but smart if it keeps the bigger picture alive. Here's the thing I want to ask you. Do you think Aston Martin needed to make this move? Was it a smart way to stabilize the business, or should they have toughed it out and protected every inch of F1 ownership? Vote in the quick poll on screen. Yes, smart move, or no, bad signal. And tell me your reasoning in the comments, because this is a debate a lot of fans are split on. And while you're at it, if you want more honest breakdowns that go beyond the headline and into the business side of F1, hit that subscribe button. We're pushing for 1,000 subscribers, and it would mean a lot to have your support. Plus, it's the best way to make sure you don't miss the next part of this story, because now things get really interesting. So here's the part that a lot of fans get wrong when they see the headline, Aston Martin sells stake in F1 team. They immediately assume Lawrence Stroll is cashing out or that the team's future is shaky. But that's not the reality at all. If anything, the sale highlights just how much control Stroll still holds and how serious he is about playing the long game in Formula One. Remember, the stake sold was by Aston Martin Lagonda, the road car company. Lawrence Stroll didn't sell his own consortium's shares. In fact, his group still owns around a third of the team, and he remains the biggest private shareholder with direct influence over how the racing outfit operates. In plain terms, this wasn't Lawrence stepping back. It was the car maker raising cash while Stroll's vision continues to drive the project forward, and that vision has been crystal clear from the very start. Ever since he bought into the old Force India team back in 2018 and rebranded it as Racing Point, Stroll has shown he's not in F1 to just make up the numbers. The investments he's pushed through have been staggering. A new factory at Silverstone, state-of-the-art wind tunnel development, and now some of the sport's most respected names being recruited to build toward the next big regulation shift in 2026. Think about Adrian Newey, the technical genius behind Red Bull's recent dominance. Bringing him on board as a technical partner was a massive statement. Add in Honda, who are set to supply Aston Martin with works power units for 2026, and suddenly you've got a blueprint that screams long-term commitment. This isn't a guy quietly backing away. This is a guy doubling down on the one opportunity he sees to push his team into championship contention. And don't forget, Lawrence is also balancing this project with family goals. He's been very open about building a car capable of competing at the very front of the grid, not just for the prestige of the Aston Martin brand, but also to give his son Lance a chance to fight for big results. Whether you think Lance has the talent or not, there's no denying Lawrence's motivation here. He's not walking away until that vision has had a real shot. Of course, there are skeptics. Some say the sales signals cracks in the foundation, or that relying on Adrian Newey and Honda is risky given how competitive Mercedes and Ferrari remain. But if you line up the moves, the logic holds. Sell a tiny piece of equity that barely dents your influence, free up capital for the road car side, and meanwhile keep building the most ambitious F1 program Aston Martin has ever had. So the question for you is this: do you trust Lawrence Stroll's long-term plan? Do you think these moves, Newey, Honda, the factory investments, are enough to turn Aston Martin into title challengers? Drop your vote in the comments. Trust if you believe in it, or not sure if you think it's still too fragile. And hey, if you want to stay ahead of the curve on this 2026 story, now's the perfect time to subscribe. We're aiming for 1,000 subscribers, and by joining now, you'll be in the loop for all the inside angles we'll be covering as these moves start to pay off. Smash the like button if you think Honda could be the real difference maker when the new engines come in, because finally, we need to talk about what this all means for the drivers, for you as a fan, and for the team's hopes in 2026. Fernando Alonso has been open about where the team's focus is right now, saying that as much as 80% of the effort has already shifted to preparing for the new regulations. He believes Aston Martin could be in the mix right from the start, but he's also realistic. Mercedes and Ferrari have been building dominant engines for decades, and Honda's return with Aston Martin will have to be flawless to keep up. Lance Stroll, on the other hand, has shown some doubts about the new regulations, calling them too artificial and worrying about how they change the nature of racing. His motivation has been a question mark, and that's why names like Felipe Drugovich keep coming up as potential alternatives if Aston Martin wants a reset in 2026. And let's not ignore Honda's history with Yuki Tsunoda. It wouldn't be shocking to see that connection resurface in the future. Alonso may be the safe bet right now, but he's in his 40s, and nobody can predict how long he'll remain at peak performance. That's why the team has to think about life beyond him, and why the decision Lawrence makes about Lance could define whether Aston Martin enters 2026 with a dream lineup or one weighed down by uncertainty. So I'll throw this last one to you. Where do you see Aston Martin finishing in 2026? Will they be fighting for a championship, settling into the top 3, or still chasing the front-runners from the midfield? Vote in the final poll on screen and tell me in the comments, top 3, 4, 6, or outside the top 6. If you've enjoyed this breakdown, make sure you hit subscribe right now and join us on the road to 1,000 subscribers. That way, you won't miss our next deep dive into how Adrian Newey's arrival could shake up the entire F1 pecking order. And don't forget to hit like. It's the best way to tell us you want more in-depth news. Coverage fast, straight to the point, and made for fans like you.